So we're on page 482 on the 5th edition of the Armstrong book. It's chapter 22 under jackets and coats, and the title is The Lining Pattern. So the next step is to really line up your facing and the body of your lining. And in order to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to transfer the shoulder dart into the seam line. And it's basically nothing more than taking that measurement and moving it over and then walking the facing and then reshaping the shoulder, which I'll show you how to do in just a minute. Again, we have to keep in mind this is going to be a little bit different on the half scales that I gave you because of a lot of reasons. Number one, they're not really adjusted to be jacket patterns, slopers. So there's a little bit of funkiness that happens. But when you get to full scale, you'll see that your shoulder dart is really in the middle, almost in the middle of your pattern. So your facing is going to fall short of that. So you actually will have to move that. And I'll be showing you how to do that in an example in a minute. We're going to be doing the same adjustments that we did to the front and then adding our action pleat in the back. So let's go ahead and start up here with the facing. Next, we're going to adjust the lining for the back. So we're going to work with the sloper that we used the other day, the half scale sloper that we used the other day. And what I'd like you to do to prepare for the draft is to trace off your back neck facing. So just take a little piece of paper, put it over your facing, and trace through. Try and get it as exact as possible. You can use tracing paper if you'd like to. And again, I usually use dots when I'm tracing, and then I will go in with my French curve and make it nice and even. And of course, again, don't forget about squaring off. And then I can go ahead and fill it in with my French curve. So basically what you're going to do is to take your dart fill and move it so that the left point is hitting at the corner of that new facing line you've drafted. So if this is measuring a 1/2 inch, which a shoulder dart usually is, then it'll start here. So the distance from here to here would be a 1/2 inch or a 1/4 inch at half scale. Okay, so now where you see, let me zoom in a bit, where you see I've drawn this pen, that's my new dart. So this dart, shoulder dart in this direction, has now disappeared and is gone almost sideways here, okay? So that when it's together, this whole piece is going to be empty. But then again, when you sew it, it'll close up. So you're moving this amount of fullness, take it from the edge of the facing over and make a mark. Then the next thing you're going to do is to take your facing, which you've now completed and you've cut out, and now you're going to walk it along that new line. So you've created a new shoulder line right here. So if I walk my facing now to here, I'm then going to mark it. And then the distance from there to here will become my new shoulder line. Okay, so let me take it step by step. That's just the general theory. So on our torso backs, our jacket torso backs, I know a lot of us ended up where the dart came right to the facing, and that's fine. If it really happened for you in your draft, if you had a really thick facing, then you'll know what to do. Otherwise, if it, as I showed in the last example, if your facing ended up here you just transfer this much of your dart, this amount of your dart over from that point where it matches up. And then just re-center your dart. So the first thing we're going to do is to take our shoulder and extend it out 1/4 of an inch. And just mark a dot. Okay, so again, this is a 1/2 inch at full scale and 1/4 of an inch at half scale. The next thing you're going to do is to draw a new shoulder line for the lining that comes to the right hand side of this dart. So you're going to blend it, and this is going to be a guideline, okay? Use another color pencil here. So if I'm blending my guideline to here, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk my cutout facing along that new line. So I'm going to turn it and turn it until it meets that new guideline, and now I'm going to mark that. And now I'm going to connect that new guideline with my extended shoulder, my adjusted shoulder. And that's going to become my new shoulder. So my pattern piece here for my lining will come from here, will come along this curve all the way, and will come out here. So I've moved my dart in through here. That will become my dart. That's going to get cut away. So when you stitch it back together, it should line up, and the fullness for the dart. And as a reminder, darts never go away. They just end up popping up someplace else. Okay, so that's how you do the facing. So again, once again, you'll take your facing and you'll walk it, you'll create your guideline going to the right hand side of that dart leg. So now I've had a nice smooth neckline here, and then I'm going to walk my facing carefully, mark where it meets, and then connect that mark to my extended shoulder. And next I'm going to proceed just as I did with the front. So I'm going to go at full scale, I'm going to go up 1/2 inch. So I know at half scale I'm going up 1/4. And I'm going to go out 1/4 inch, and I know at half scale that's 1/8. So that becomes my new point. So now I'm going to again come in, blend in, again above the notch, making sure it meets up, and then blending out. And now I've adjusted my armhole for the back. So now I'm going to add my ease like I did on the front. So again, I've come 1/2 inch up, 1/4 inch at half scale. I've come 1/4 inch out, 1/8 inch at half scale. So on this example, and again, don't forget to write your instructions down if you need to. So here you could put 1/4 inch at full scale. And then I'm going to walk my curve. And again, I'm blending to 0 at the hemline. Okay? So you're going to blend right in back where the original pattern is. So on the hemline of the jacket, you may see that the sloper's got photographed in a way where you may run out of paper, so feel free to tape on an extra piece of paper if you need to. It's not a big deal. So what we're going to do is to first make an adjustment to our fashion fabric pattern and add that hem allowance like we did in the front. And again, if you remember, we added 1.5 inches to our hem allowance. So at half scale, we're going to add 3/4 of an inch. So you want to put that in first. And that's our hem allowance. And then we're going to put in for the lining hem. And that, if you remember, on the front was 1 inch up from your newly developed hemline, so going in this direction, and that is 1 inch up at full scale, so we're 1/2 inch, as I've already drawn, at half scale. And then you can go ahead and write lining in here so you know that it's your lining. The last step is to put in what's called the action pleat. The action pleat will act as a real great fullness that will allow a person to really move their arms quite a bit, again, so that the jacket doesn't pull. So the lining has all this ease, as we've talked about, for that reason, so that the jacket never pulls. It always sits as a shell on the body. Most action pleats are 2 inches, which would make it 1 inch on the half. They get pleated either out in a box pleat or in an inverted pleat. And again, when we get to construction, I will show you how to do that. So most action pleats are 2 inches wide. So that would leave you with 1 inch on the fold, and half of that at half scale will be 1/2 inch. So what you want to do here, and again, we're just working on the lining, so this will not include the facing, is to come out 1/2 inch, which will be 1 inch on the full, at full scale, and then come down the center back to your lining hem, and that completes the back lining pattern. And again, all the green here is the lining pattern. Your red down here is fashion fabric, where you would cut the whole thing from center front all the way down, all the way around, and then your facing is fashion fabric also. And that's the back of your jacket lining.